Welcome back and many thanks for staying with us right here on the #1 show in the country, Morning at 10 TV. Do not forget, it will be precarious for you to forget that Minute Maid is one of our sponsors. Yes, ITEL are also our sponsors. We also do have the YouListen app. It is one app through which you could maximize on your ability to learn on the internet. You simply have to actually activate your bundles and you'll be able, as a learner, in the absence of a teacher or a parent, to be able to learn on your own. Minute Maid, when it comes to the replenishing of all those lost fluids, it works for me. Whenever I leave work and go back home, there's always a bottle of Minute Maid waiting for me, even before I put anything in my stomach. It is one avenue through which I can alleviate hunger in that regard. Even before eating anything solid, Minute Maid comes in handy all the time. When I wake up in the morning, Minute Maid is always there to help me replenish all the lost fluids and the lost energy. Clamor for the same any day, any time. Also, like I did mention, ITEL is one of our sponsors. Clamor for their technological advancements or services, if you will. Yes, they have gadgets. You want to reach out to that relative in the United States of America, but you have no other way. Please clamor for their technological advancements and you'll be able to actually improve your life when it comes to connectivity in that regard. We'd like to talk about engaging youth in achieving, guess what, sustainable development. I do have none other than Patricia Atumuhaire, and she's joining us right here. She's the program manager, Reach a Hand Uganda, to talk about that and a lot more. Schools are reopening January 10th of 2022. How ready are the schools, private or public, to deal with the sexual reproductive health and rights challenges that will actually come as a result of the reopening of schools as mammoth crowds of students get back into the school system? I'm Tahire. A very good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Give us a situation analysis of how young people have been affected as far as access to sexual reproductive health information and rights is concerned during this COVID-19 pandemic.
During the pandemic, there have been very many challenges for young people.
Indeed.
And I don't necessarily think COVID exacerbated them, the challenges that they had, the challenges that they've been dealing with, but COVID just expanded the scope of how much they're going through.
Indeed.
And just as it was a strain on the adults, it was a strain on everyone. COVID was a strain on everyone. But for young people particularly, education is a campus. When you grew up, you knew in 2016 I'll be in senior 6, at this year I'll be at university. It was a campus for your life. You saw your life through school.
Indeed.
So for these young people in this situation, it was a moment that was not thought about, that you could stop school and not be certain, when am I going to finish this class? When am I going to another class? So I think for them it was very challenging to be in limbo, to not know then what next is there for me, where do I go from here, how do I plan, which friends do I have, will I be going back? There's a lot of economic activities or economic imbalance that went on during the COVID-19. So there was hope. There's no hope. Am I going to go back to school? My parents don't have money. There was loss of parents. We have so many people that have been orphaned, single parents or single child households. So uncertainty. Has been confusion.
So access to basic amenities like sanitary towels has been a need for so many of our young girls, many of whom have been forced to sleep with men to actually secure sanitary towels. I was having this conversation with my beautiful fiancée yesterday. For 2 hours we were talking about the access to sanitary towels for young girls. It was an emotional encounter, and I'm telling you, she was telling me that young girls as early as 10 during her day in school, it was hard for them to even access basic amenities like sanitary towels. Many would even shy away of going to the school system simply because others are going to be laughing at her. She's bleeding and she has no access to sanitary towels in that regard. Think about the situation where we reopen schools, parents do not have school fees. How many are going to be able to give at least 2 or 3 sanitary towels to their young female learners to go back to the school system and be able to continue their learning? Isn't that a problem we should foresee?
Yeah, I think that's definitely a challenge, and we're talking about it, you and I, before the show.
Indeed.
But the issue of pads is just an effect. There is a tree where it stems. It's not a cause. So we can't heal pads at a level of let's just provide a pad. Menstruation is a monthly period. It will come every month. So is it sustainable? It's an issue of to think about it widely. Talk about the sexual reproductive budget. What is the budget that goes to young people at national level? At district level, they've been making cost implementation plans. Is there a cost that looks at such a provision? When we say schools, most of these private schools, which are really the most, you find it's compulsory to take a broom, to take what? Can it be part of the things that it's compulsory to make? And then we burden the provider, who can be a parent. And I'm not saying that without being cognizant of the things that parents are going through, but to just say, ensure this is something that is there for your girl child. So the issue of pads, for me, I think it should go back to policy level, it should go to budgeting, because we can't tackle it at just giving out a pad one day. The period will be there until menopause. So what will this girl child do? Yeah, but saying, is it heartbreaking, the things that young people are doing to get pads? Very heartbreaking.
But is it feasible to actually provide sanitary towels among any school, public or government in this country, just like we are providing condoms in many of the public spaces? When you enter a building, there will be just a corner right there. You can go and get a condom. Could it be made more accessible so that when I enter a building, there's a sanitary towel in a corner? As a young woman, I can go and help myself. Is it feasible for the school setting?
I think it will be feasible if it's in the budget, because that's where it starts. You see, condoms are provided. Uganda is not the one providing condoms. We have donor funding, we have UNFPA, we have all these other development partners giving us the pink condoms, the Ugandan condoms. So we have to think of a system where there is a budget for them. And I know there is this common saying of sex is a choice, but menstruation periods are not a choice. So why don't we give pads to that is not a choice? But it's a thing that has to be systematic, planned from the start, but starting from budget level. Because provision of schools, these schools are commercial, they're here for profit. So if there is a policy why you say they must be provided, then it can be done, because I mean, if you say children must go for holiday, then it will be done. So if we can put it in the system, put it in the policies, and then evaluate it, follow it up every day, then it can be feasible.
What are some of the other basic amenities that girls needed during the COVID-19 pandemic but couldn't get their hands on, besides sanitary towels?
Access to information.
Indeed.
Access to sexual reproductive health information, because sexual reproductive health is not something that you just get to know. There has to be a deliberate intention to learn it. You can finish your university. I finished my university, finished a degree, and I had no idea about sexual reproductive health. So access to that information, because when you get the information, then you can make a choice.
You're telling me sometimes at the university level we still have learners who do not know how HIV is acquired?
Yes. They will not teach you at university about adherence, about reinfection, about CD4 count.
Indeed.
The things you have to be deliberately be taught on these things, and that's why we are advocating for policies that integrate sexual reproductive health in school, so that you learn about yourself. Because sexual reproductive health is not simply HIV, it's not simply pads, it is the way you live. Absolutely, starting from what you put on in the morning, the hygiene, your mental health, how you're planned, systems to think and plan and evolve and, have empowerment. That's all sexual reproductive health.
Indeed. Yeah. It is really mind-boggling, Patricia. I was looking at the statistics, and we don't believe that over 50% of our young people in this country do not know how to use a condom. I was like, what have they been learning in school? What happened to sexuality education?
Yeah, so sexuality education, it's a good question, but we don't have a policy passed yet. We have a national sexuality
education framework.
We have a framework, which
school education policy,
whose implementation is still, a work in progress. We don't have a policy yet. I think it has been 20 years now when we're pushing for the school health policy
to be implemented.
And I hope we are making steps in the right direction even after all these years. We're very positive, because that's the only way that we're going to go through. So can you be 30 and not know how to properly use a condom?
Mind-boggling.
Yes, and these things that people do on the street, some street casts where they're asking questions to the people. Proper use of a condom is very simple, but it's very hard. Is it consistent? Is it proper? That's not for everyone to learn. That's why we have to integrate it. And when you ask me of the challenges, I told you one of them is access to this sexual reproductive health information, and the other is access to their services. But it's not a problem for COVID. It's something that has been there and has been exacerbated by COVID because of the restrictions and so on. So that has been the issue. But I think in general, it's an issue of meaningful youth participation.
Indeed.
Of, do we have young people at implementation level? Do we have them at evaluation level? Are we having them as a token? Just gifting them a small job? Or are we believing in the ability, in their power to work? I think of Uganda, you know, when you look at gold and diamond, all these stones have been given value by human beings. You wake up and say, you know, this, let's have value. This is gold and it's valuable. Young people are a resource that have not been given value. The question goes off. It's a resource, it's equally gold, it's bigger than silver, you have it, it's a big resource. Uganda is very lucky to have a population of young people, but it's a resource we've not focused on and put our full power on to harness from it. And how do we harness this resource that is young people? Skill them, give them decent jobs, give them decent pay. Do not be amazed at a smart young person. Say, oh my God, he's so smart. No, he's just a young person. It's the bare minimum for them to be what they are. So for me, I think largely is to look at young people as a resource, as a people to say, can we invest and harvest in them? Can we skill them? The jobs that our parents didn't think about. Social media influencer. What is that? You know, your parent might not understand it, but those are the jobs that have come in this era. Have we equipped our young people with knowledge to navigate the 20th century issues that they're dealing with?
And keep them busy.
And keep them busy. Have we give them, simple knowledge even to navigate bullying on the internet? That's part of sexual reproductive health. Can you navigate a conversation of a bully? Yes? Can you navigate a pressure of sharing nudes? You have I have people always pushing me on my status saying, oh, you people are always talking about an issue of a boy child and a girl child. You're the people making it worse. And then you go back and you look at a person asking, they're in Kampala. They are the privileged. Until you move out of this space, then you understand that actually there is separation between a boy child and a girl child as young people. So the issues that we have to look at young people, look at them in the different intersectionalities or the different categories that they're dealing with. Are they young, uneducated? Are they young with a disability? Is it a young sex worker? Is it a young person in school? To break those young people down and appreciate those differences.
Indeed, Patricia, let's also talk about the ramifications that culminate out of little or no access to sexual reproductive health information and rights. What are some of those immediate effects?
The immediate effects is a bad choice. And a bad choice can come from dropping out of school, drug abuse, unplanned pregnancy, and that's very big for a girl child, because how many schools allow a pregnant young girl in school? And our scale is going high and high, and now we've seen that we even have relatives as perpetrators, people that we trust with our young people who are perpetuating this. HIV, you'll be very shocked that in Uganda, in Kampala, I think our prevalence rate is like at 7, but in Kabarole is at 14. 14. The sex workers there are 12, 13, 14, and they're just out there in the street.
I was looking at the sex workers, and they were saying 31% HIV prevalence. When it comes to the islands, 25%.
Yeah.
And of course, most of these infections are among our young teenagers, between the ages of 15 to 24. Why are they susceptible to this problem?
Information. They can't negotiate a conversation. You're going to tell this young person about condom use, consistent, proper use of it, but can they negotiate with their partners?
Indeed.
Even go to a young person that is empowered. Can I be able to tell my partner, no, I will not have sex without a condom? Or I will not have it until you test. Is testing done after 3 months, or is it done once a year? So it is the power of, do they have information to make the right choices? To say, I'm going to delay. If you're talking about your child and you're telling them about abstinence, give them background, give them context. Can they negotiate that discussion till when they're done? Up to when? Is it that when they're married, when they finish school, okay, now that they've started having sex, what's plan B for them? So I think the young people have not been given enough information, and that's why we need these policies, because policies provide guidelines that ensure accountability for such issues. So the bigger scale, these are the things that will also come from access to services, because services today, the young people get services, and everyone at a government level. At health center tools, what kind of services are there? Is it just malaria? Is there antenatal? Is there family planning? It's just malaria and immunization. So someone has to walk to a health center for, if you've been in the villages, a health center for is a sub-county distance. You get a young person walking distances that are very far. In things that they'll say, oh, you have an STI, how did you get it? It's not prioritized, but an STI will will cause infertility. An STI will cause a lot of discomfort out of school, things that come with lack of access to sexual reproductive health services, but start from lack of access to sexual reproductive health information. That
even when they go to the health centers, Patricia, they actually grapple with attitudinal challenges coming in from the health workers. Oh, you're 16, you've come to get some help. How come you're engaging in sexual encounters at your age? Go and bring your parent. But you forget that this young person has come to you, you know, after, you know, lying to their parents at the health center. Now you're telling them, go back and bring your parent. What are the chances that this young girl is going to go and pick her parent? No, she's going to go and, you know, undergo an unsafe abortion, if you will, or another unscrupulous challenge, if you will. Talk to us about that. Attitudinal challenges at the health centers. How are they hampering this, this challenge here?
That's a very big challenge, actually, that there is a big system of people that believe they have to think for these young people.
I see.
They have to plan for them. And our health service providers go and they're taught how to be medical workers. They have done a good job at it, but they still have grappling challenges within themselves. You're a health worker, but you're still a mother, you're still a religious person, you're still a wife, you're still an auntie, you're still a VHT. Like, there's so many things that these health workers come with. So there has to be also intentional training to tackle those balances that they're dealing with, because they're human. But that's a big challenge to barrier of access to services. Sometimes the services are there and someone will look at you and say, oh, tell your mother, what are you doing here? You should be abstaining. But they're not abstaining. Give them a chance. Also a system of bringing these young health workers, because they're more open-minded. They're more open-minded in terms of who tackles an adolescent when they come to the facility. Have we deliberately said we want to ease access for adolescents, so we're going to provide youth-friendly services and have the adolescent be worked on? And I'm talking about the one deep in the village, not the one in Kampala who can afford. So those in the village, those in the slums, the attitude has to change for the health workers. And there's so many people that are working on this. At Richer Hand, we do this as well, is to say train the health workers. Don't just we have a peer educators academy that equips young people. Even the stakeholders that work with young people. Yes, they are the gatekeepers. There will be health workers, there will be leaders in the community. Even you as a person, like, think about it. How many times have you gone in a meeting and you find a young person and your question is, oh, you're here for the meeting as well? Catch yourself in that moment and say, but look here, this is not right. We should judge them on what they can bring on the table.
Indeed.
Yes.
Indeed. I agree on that. So who is engaging young people and what do they say?
So at Richer Hand, where I work, we use what we call a peer-to-peer model.
Peer-to-peer model. A
peer-to-peer model where we train these peer educators through the Peer Educators Academy. To say that it might be hard for a young person to talk to you about their challenges. Your peer can. I think really a peer model is that this is a person you share either
went through it,
yeah. Economic status. You can freely talk and you feel like you understand each other. The moment before you finish a sentence, they say, yes, me too, I've gone through that. So we believe that it's easier for you to open up on someone that has given you a blank canvas. The judgment is down, you put your guard down, you put your walls down. But where you're dealing with people that are older, that already have a basis of judgment of what you should or shouldn't do as a young person, then that becomes problematic. So we use a peer-to-peer model, but we also engage other stakeholders because they don't have information. We've been having several engagements with members of parliament, and they don't have this information. Indeed. They tell you, so how, I didn't know this was happening. So
actually, they don't even know 600,000 of our young girls have been impregnated. They don't.
Absolutely. And they've not humanized the numbers. They've not humanized these numbers. It's just, you say 600 girls, it's just a number.
Do you feel like there is goodwill from the government or good political will from the government to handle this issue of access to sexual reproductive health and rights or information, if you will, for these young learners, alleviating the skyrocketing teenage pregnancies, early marriages? Do you think there is good political will from the government to alleviate these challenges? Based on the account that even after telling them 600,000 young girls have been impregnated, little to nothing has been done by this government, except writing a few recommendations on what should be done on paper, which are never implemented. You did have two explosions, CPS and Parliamentary Avenue, and soon we are in Congo. But 600,000 impregnations have not prompted this government to act. Why? And what should be done in that regard?
Is that goodwill? I think there is goodwill. Is there commitment to fulfill that goodwill?
And implement, indeed.
That's another question. That's another question. But in terms of goodwill, because Uganda has ratified all these very beautiful commitments, that if we choose to do them, and I'm saying that well aware that government can't do it alone. Your government and I'm government, a media person is government, a CSOs, but we are supporting.
So the problem is implementation.
Yes, the rest of us are playing a supportive role.
Indeed.
Either way, all these other stakeholders playing, we need government to commit to evaluation of these results. So there is commitment, and but we can do more. There is room for, are we evaluating? Do we go back and say, okay, how far have we gone? We made this commitment. When you say girls have gotten to school, you can't just say we've put UPE. You've put it there. Thank you. That's a good thing. But then how can we evaluate it? Is it working? How often do we do it? And give young people space and liberty to critique the way we are doing things. Because young people have the time. They have the creativity, they have the innovation to come up with things that will evaluate the work that we're doing. Is the system working? Can we constantly say that, okay, you've put health facilities. Are there stockouts? Because we have a lot of stockouts that are happening. So there is a will, but commitment to achieving that will is still what is lacking. And I think it is a lot of people's jobs, like everyone, as citizens, as CSOs, as media, but especially as government, because they're in the driving seat, to put evaluation spaces, allow people to critique the system, dialogue, because there is nothing wrong with dialoguing. It's not time wasted. It is coming back to put a torch into ourselves. So
Indeed.
To hold each other accountable, to hold self accountable, and hold our leaders accountable. Have spaces. Now we have the National Youth Council with Jacob Eyero and Pinto. They should be an avenue that is used to evaluate. You are a National Youth Council, the youth problems, how far have we gone, what is the trajectory, are we progressing, are we not progressing, are we thinking retrospectively, are we thinking progressively? So to have those systems start doing what they are supposed to do, and we hold them accountable.
And indeed, away from government, Patricia, what is the role of the parents and also the religious leaders in advancing sexuality education in this regard?
The role of, thank you, the role of parents is, is that if there is a young person who enters a room and you think they are a thief,
Indeed.
we've failed them.
Indeed.
If the young person that you see who are doing well, as a parent, you'll thump yourself in the chest and say, I've done well with my child. So for parents, it's a big role in terms of upbringing. Africa as it is, it's very communal, that you don't look after your child alone. So even a religious leader in the forum, they're parents. But to parents is to say, have willingness to learn. There is no manuscript for being a parent.
What message do you have for those parents who have neglected that role when it comes to advancing of sexuality education? And they're like, I'm waiting for the reopening of schools. I'll send this young child to the school setting, and the teacher will be the problem for this.
Again, I think that's just an effect. You're going to, you were talking about your fiancé, and I don't know if you have children in, but you're going to have children. Who has taught you? If in school they took you through sexuality education, then they are building a generation of parents that will talk about sexuality education.
Indeed.
You understand what I mean?
I get it.
That for a parent, where are they going to get the knowledge? You didn't get it. There is no manuscript for being a parent and where you're going to get this information. So
many are learning on the job.
Many are learning on the job. If you want to cure parents having knowledge to tell their children, have policies that teach these parents. And then to the religious leaders, they are our spiritual fathers, but put judgment down. You can't judge a young person as what you have in your head. You can't box young people to a certain box, that each young person has to behave a certain way. Allow that your information that spiritual leaders give can't only be spiritual. It has to broaden to physical. We believe in the work that they do, but they can't be opposition to sexuality education.
They are opposing contraception use. For them, they say it's abstinence, abstinence, abstinence. There's no other way. But then we did tell them that many of these young girls were forced into having sex, and they actually ended up being pregnant. They were never consensual in these acts at any time. So the ABCs do not work.
Yes, but be appreciative of, yes, what works and what doesn't work. If it's abstinence, good for you. Is it working? if it's not working, is it that we're just rigid and holding on to an idea? If this idea is not working, are we willing to come back to the table and say, so what is working? Can we look at new ideas that are going to work and are going to help our young people to make sense? And they should allow for collaboration.
Indeed.
And we have very many religious leaders that have become progressive. We need to engage them and give them information. Then again, they don't have the information that is right. They think, if you've sinned, I mean, hate the sin, but don't hate the sinner. They tell us about that. Call them back and let's learn for these young people. If you judge them, that's to the extent in which they will engage you. To the parents, we still have parents giving out their girl child for quick gains. And this is common.
Child marriages.
Child marriages. The early marriages are high. To the parents that are perpetrators of domestic violence, perpetrators of sexual abuse to their own children, we saw the stories in COVID. I mean, then they the advice is not to those parents.
And of course, we are missing out on
government.
future human resource because most of these young girls need to be kept in school. What role should the young boys play in all this? Because we cannot negate the role of the young boys. If we keep them busy, no one will be impregnating our young girls. Talk to us about that.
I think when we say access to information, it's for all.
Indeed.
It's for all. We need boys as partners. We need boys or men as partners. We need them as champions. We need them as collaborators, and we need them as supporters. So yes, we need the boy child there. But when we say giving of information, we need it given to the young people as a whole, not to say the boy child or the girl child. Everyone, really. Every young person should have access to that information. And to the boys, the willingness to learn. Be curious. Be curious to say, if my sister is going through periods, how does that work? Because you're your sister's keeper. I would encourage them to be curious. Be a young person that is curious. Be a young person that is empowered. Don't be challenged by a girl paying for a debt. Don't be challenged by a powerful girl in terms of brain muscle.
Indeed.
It's just another human being. Just
Indeed.
learn to tackle them, is to say, to have more confidence, to build a society of positive masculinity. But what does to be a man or the boy on the block look like?
Indeed. Of course, we've talked about many of these challenges, Patricia, Amatuhaire, but one thing we want to talk about, the $64,000 question. Schools are reopening on January 10th next year. How ready is the government to handle the challenges that come with SRHR access?
Good question. And the how ready, I think the schools have to open and we see. Because have we put structures to tackle sexual reproductive health issues? No, none that I know of. Yes, what is the actionable way forward? What can the rest of the people do? Because at the end of the day, it's your daughter. You're not going to say, government, give up on my daughter.
Indeed.
I'll take it back to the parents. I'll take it back to the guardians, whichever form of parent that you have, whether it's your sibling, whether it's organizations like Reach a Hand that are coming in with projects that are in school. Government has to be willing to allow other parties, and they've been doing this, but be more progressive to allow parties to support, because it's going to be a bomb blast. You have all young people in who feel old, they don't feel they fit in the class, they feel tired.
Indeed.
They have moved out of the system, now they know about markets and sitting on TV. So we need all players on board. And to say, what are we committing to? For government is to go back to policies, strengthen policies, because policies create structures that whether you break schools, whether you make them, a structure will come back and build where it started. So let's have the school health policies passed so that we work on them. But in the meantime, as schools open, if you're a head teacher, a senior woman, a prefect at school, is to say we need concerted effort. For CSOs like Reach a Hand to go back and say, we have a project that we call Get Your Mix Out. Go back in school for peer learning sessions. Hold efforts together, because the focus now is having these children pass. But we know that's not how it works. You're not going to pass when you have your individual battles that you're dealing with, or you're even pregnant, or you're tackling mental health. So it's to put efforts together, to challenge government to pass these policies, to encourage them to pass these policies, and to say it's not just about passing that exam.
Indeed, Patricia. Patricia, before I let you go, talk to the parent out there who is watching Morning at NTV, but they made a decision during this COVID-19 pandemic that they won't be sending their young child or young girl back into the school system since she got pregnant. Talk to their young pregnant girl who right now is saying, no, I'm a young mother right now. I can't go back into the school setting. Talk to the young boy right now who is saying, I've since gotten a job and I don't think there is any business for me in the school setting. Advise them.
To the young, I will start with the young girl and the young boy. To the young girl and boy first, I hope that in January you come for the academy. But is to say, your only way, your weapon to empowerment is education.
Thank you.
Whether you want it or not, your weapon to, whether you have that job that is paying you 500, however much it's paying you, you need that education. It's your tool that is going to lead you to reach heights, because that job that you have is not sustainable. Tomorrow the employer will ask for more. They always ask for more. So take education as serious as you can. I know you have a baby girl. Having a child shouldn't stop you. If you already have a child, go back, pave a way for yourself and for that child. To the parent, you have a resource. There is no better gold, there is no better investment than putting that young girl in school, because that's when you're going to exploit the full potential. As a community, you will benefit, but even as a country, we want citizens that pay taxes and not to labor it on a few people.
Indeed.
So let them go to school. To the head teachers, be very mindful. They are back to school, but there are very many mental health challenges that these young people are dealing with.
Thank you.
So let's utilize the senior women and wardens.
All right, that is Patricia Mutuhaire, Program Manager, Reach a Hand Uganda. Thank you very much for divulging such important information for our viewers out there who are watching Morning at 10 TV.
Okay.
Thank you for coming through. Looking forward to our next encounter.
Yes.
And of course, kind regards to everyone at Reach a Hand, all the humanitarian organizations within this country, near and abroad, that are working towards acquainting young people with sexual reproductive health information and rights in that regard. You're doing the most, and we hope the government adds some kind of support to your good work. That's it for that conversation. Let's take a break. We'll return shortly with more. Keep it